show an ad that we think is positive and have you comment on this ad. It's a Prudential ad. Could we see that, please? There it is. And this is from the Carolyn Jones Advertising Agency.
These ads are running in all magazines?
These in black publications.
In black publications
black
only?
Newspapers, college programs.
And I would ask, why only black newspapers when we know that African Americans read Wall Street Journal, read Town and Country, read everything? Tell me why an ad like that, which is positive, would not appear in one of the major market.
Well, there's two major issues. On the industry side, there's budget. Just traditionally, black consumer agencies or African American consumer advertising agencies do not get budgets that allow them to spend as much money in the major general market books like Time or Newsweek or Town and Country.
So you're blocked out of purchasing pages?
Technically, yes. That it's based on what the professor has talked about here, and it's targeting and segmentation.
But wait a minute.
You are part of a business base, but you may not be the heavy user.
But I don't understand that, because if we look at how many African Americans are educated, where they work, where they live, they're investing in the stock industry, they're traveling abroad, they're buying gold and silver on the market, and that means that they read something other than Essence and Ebony.
Absolutely.
Am I far-fetched from
No,
this, or
you're
am I
not.
following it?
I think for a number of years, and this goes back to the 60s, there was this concern about there might be a white backlash if you showed a lot of blacks in advertising geared toward the white community. But in all the studies that have been done over the years, basically the results have shown that blacks tend to respond more favorably when they see other blacks in ads, and whites are not adversely affected.
Exactly.
So it really doesn't have a negative effect.
So then why don't advertising agencies give the companies that are African American, like the Carolyn Jones Company or Barbara Gardner Proctor, why don't they get more money if what you say is true?
They should. They should get more money. They should be judged on their creative ability and the ability to create effective advertising, not just geared toward black consumers, but they are advertising professionals, and I agree that they should be given that opportunity.
The advertiser is the one that picks the company to depict the ad. The ad impacts on the market. The market makes the decision. So if the advertiser does not pick an agency that will depict all of us equally, then the ad doesn't address us equally, then the whole idea of racism is continued, and so
but isn't that the idea? I mean,
and you said it, Betty, and you said it. Let's look at this ad. I would call this next ad a negative ad. This is Range Rover. Here it is. Personal opinion.
I was turned off by the ad. I don't see what they're trying to accomplish with that. You know, the washing of the mud from the car and then revealing the nice white car underneath. I don't think that they're going to get the kind of response from that ad that they desire. This is just my personal opinion.
I think it's a fascinating ad in that it can convey, it can trigger some racist responses without even having any people in it.
It's subtle.
And, excuse me?
Subtle.
Oh, it's very subtle, very ambiguous. And to have the progression from truly jungle music with wild animals screaming to opera, it's obviously supposed to represent a progression from primitiveness to sophistication. And they use two stereotypes to do that. It's very obvious. They're trying to say this car
is dirty.
No, it's sturdy, and it can get you through the jungle, get you through rough roads, but it can take you to the opera house as well. It's so elegant and well built.
You got that out of this?
That's what they intend from it. Oh,
but if you're
absolutely,
just looking at it, what would you get?
Well, you know, this goes back to what I said earlier in terms of people interpreting and the perceptions. We did a study where we took 10 commercials done by a black-owned ad agency, and I brought in a number of my black students. I asked them to evaluate the ads, and it was amazing of the different perceptions that we got from those ads.
Was this one of them?
No, this was not one of them, no. These were other commercials, but, you know, for example, just as to give you an example.
But let's look at this one we just saw.
Okay.
Analyze it, Professor.
Okay, when you look at colors and you talk about, you know, moving from dirty brown, black to white, Once again, in certain cultures, that would be perceived that way. But you can look in certain cultures where blue is masculine and pink is feminine, and other cultures it's just the reverse. Pink is masculine and blue is feminine. In our culture, black is a color of mourning. In other cultures, white is a color of mourning. What I'm saying is, look at the viewer, and if that gives that negative message, as an advertiser, then I would say that would not be an effective ad. But that's the critical thing, testing it among the people that are going to perceive it, and if it gives that impression, then you don't use it. That's what pre-testing is all about in advertising.
And that's done before ads run, right?
It should be.
Yeah,
It should be.
I'll tell you, I don't think in this case, I'm not sure, but I don't think in this case the advertiser or the agency tested it even aware that it might have racial overtones.
The Africans are savages, is that supposed
yeah,
to
well,
be-
Come on.
What, that they think
Yeah.
that?
Come on.
No, they think that this designer, they're really promoting a designer who's looking to Africa designs for inspiration. Fine and good, you know, but what the ad says is something completely different, the picture alone, and it says there's this sort of white conqueress, you know, who stands tall over 3 black tribesmen.
It says white supremacy.
It says white supremacy, whites are
Designed for that.
civilized.
And look how she is. She rises above the image of a Caucasian woman rising above these savage black men.
They were targeting the black image that most Americans have. You know what I'm saying? How we perceive ourselves as black people, and also how the white society perceives us. They perceive our women in the kitchen flipping pancakes with these rags on our heads. And they just recently changed her image in the 1980s. So that we shouldn't be surprised when the psychologists do tests to find out whether the black child would pick a white doll over the black doll. The child, even in the 1980s and 90s, will still pick the white doll and want to be like that doll. That's the pretty doll. But they shun the black doll, and advertising is notorious for it.
Okay.
Yes. I think if you look at a lot of those images, it's not just the Aunt Jemima, it's the Uncle Ben's rice, it's the cream of wheat chef, and a lot of this developed after the Civil War, the the antebellum period, where the perception of blacks was that they were good gardeners, cooks, farmers, and so then they would use blacks in roles to endorse or be spokespersons for certain products. Now, with the Aunt Jemima, as she mentioned, if you look at a progression, they have tried to change that. And if you look at the latest concept, it's more a black Betty Crocker, so to speak. And the handkerchief has become more like a sweatband, and she looks like, supposed to look like a black housewife. But the caller is very right. If you look at a lot of these perceptions over the years, a lot of the images that advertisers have used like that, it has perpetuated certain stereotypes that people...
Remember that you are what we see when we see advertising.